This is the Second Studio, architecture and design podcast hosted by two architects. Today it's the two of us in the studio, myself, David Lee, and Marina Borderonay, and a long-awaited after-hours conversation where we talk about anything and everything, and at the same time, nothing.
Would you like to get as-built faster? IPX has you covered. IPX lets you seamlessly transform laser scans into LOD300 BIM and CAD files. Whether you've got your 3D scans already or need the full laser scanning service, IPX offers instant pricing and order tracking for scan to BIM services on any project, no matter the size or complexity. Plus, your BIM files can be seamlessly transferred to Autodesk Construction Cloud, allowing your construction team to start work right away. Start your next project on the 50-yard line with accurate data. Click the IPX link in our show notes to learn more.
Managing design projects and specifications can be a headache, but Programma makes it easy. Trusted by top firms in 75 countries, it's the world's most beautiful software for interior designers. Its suite of powerful tools offers simpler client interactions with less back and forth, saving you hours of manual work and making your job more enjoyable. Stop struggling and start thriving with the seriously powerful Programma. Click the link in our show notes and get 25% off an annual subscription with the code SecondStudio at checkout. Trust us, you'll wonder how you ever worked without it.
Available with Revit version 2023.1 onward, Autodesk Insight is a next-generation carbon analysis tool that can help you make the leap to low-carbon design. With only a few clicks, Insight lets you analyze, understand, and track the embodied and operational carbon impact of your design choices. You can then visualize opportunities for energy efficiency and carbon mitigation with its flexible dashboards, helping you make more sustainable and informed decisions. Check out the Insight link in our show notes to find out more.
This is the Second Studio with the two of us. Here we go. So, look. Here's the thing.
This is a great way to sell the show, by the way. We talk about everything and nothing.
But that's
wow,
basically what it
fired
is.
Right there on the spot.
Here's the thing. Events, okay? If you have a life event coming up and you have a celebration about that life event, you are allotted one event. And when I say you, I don't mean specifically you. I mean just people, and you have one event. That's it. I don't want a pre-event. Don't ask me to attend a pre-event, a main event, and then a post-event, and expect gifts all through events. And then 2 months later, oh, we're doing some other version of the event now because it's October. And it's been like 30 days since the last one. So there's a post event. Gifts. No more gifts for you. None. Especially also if we have family members that give gifts to them. That's it. It's a cutoff. It's
so
ridiculous.
You sound like a crazy person. Also, I don't think anyone knows what you're talking about. Like, who has...
They know what I'm talking about. There's too many celebrations. Stop celebrating. Stop celebrating.
Life is such a joy.
Your life is not that incredible. Stop celebrating. If you're at a point in your life where you have to take what should be one event and then make 4 things out of it, then your life sucks. Then you have a life problem, okay? The same thing with weddings, right? What do we have? We have a bridal shower, a groom's thing. We have like a rehearsal thing. It's like a pre-wedding honeymoon, pre-moon thing. The wedding itself and the honeymoon. It's too much. And then anniversary, none of that. Get married, have one event, dinner, boom, done. You don't get 5 gifts because you're getting married. And stop announcing it too. I really do think if you're the type of person, you feel the need to do that.
Look, you know where you should live? You should live in Europe. Because this is just a result of consumerism, American consumerism. Everything is a celebration. You have to buy. You have to go to the store. You have to order. You have to get shit. You have to consume. You have to throw it away. You have to buy new, right? So it really pisses you off. Yeah, you gotta live on the other side of the world, man.
Probably. I do feel more
All
European. All
right, so when are we moving back?
I do feel more European than I do American in general.
I don't know what I feel like.
Yeah, you must be confused.
I feel the opposite. But it also depends on what subject, so really it's...
Yeah, but you what?
Is the window cracked?
Like fractured?
Yeah.
Oh, I think it is. Oh, well.
Oh, great. Oh, great.
Well. But you do choose to be more American.
I'm going to wait for the next earthquake to happen in LA to reach out and get that replaced.
Yeah. But you do choose to identify as being American or European or French. based on what is most advantageous to you in that moment.
Oh, I mean, advantageous. I don't know if it's about advantageous. No, I don't know if it's about advantageous or if it's about, well, what is the question? And I tell you which way I'm landing on, what I believe in.
Yeah, but you were...
I believe in shutters. I don't believe in fake shutters. I think I made that clear. So I'm very much French on shutters as it comes to shutters, right?
Fair enough. It is kind of amazing that there are standards for each country, and some countries do things like totally, completely ass backwards, and objectively, like common sense logic, it makes no sense. But we or other countries still do it because of tradition, and that's just the way it is. I mean, talk about things that irk me. That really disturbs me. But you were asked recently about the Olympics, which were going on, which we didn't watch hardly any of. And I think someone asked you, like, who...
I think you did.
Who? Like, no, I wouldn't. I don't care about the Olympics. Something about who's winning, or you rooting for this and that.
I don't know. There was some games between, like, France and the U.S., and they asked me, like, which camp am I in? And because I really don't give a crap about sports. I'm like, whoever's going to win, I guess. I really don't care.
But you did watch some of the Olympics, and it was entertaining. I mean, we watched...
Actually, yeah, I surprised myself on that. I am not in... I have really not much interest in sports, except maybe a handful of them I might be interested in.
Foosball.
Yeah, ping pong, you know.
Sure. Have you ever watched professional ping pong?
Yeah, it's scary.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's scary. But, so, you know, like... the practice of sports, I might be interested in maybe like 2% of them.
Okay.
The watching of sports, I'm usually interested in minus 100.
Okay.
Like, especially if it's not in real life.
Okay.
Like, I'm like, why would I sit in front of a TV watching people do stuff and for hours? And
it is, but
I'm like, oh,
but you say that, but you watch the gymnastics and you watch skateboarding.
So that's how I feel, right?
Okay.
And then I was like, well, you know, we had a friend visiting who's listening to the show in general. And she was very much into watching the Olympics. So I was like, okay, you know, let's watch it because I don't want her to be, you know, missing on it because she's visiting. And actually, it was pretty cool. I mean, the gymnastics is pretty interesting to watch because it's the type of
weird
stuff you don't see in the street or like every day. No, but you know what I mean? Like you would have to go to a place where people do that to see that. Soccer, basketball, rollerblading, skateboarding, like all of that stuff. Like I could just walk by a place down the street and I could see people do that. It's nothing phenomenal, right? But there is some sport like gymnastics, which is like not stuff that you could see by walking down the street.
You see it.
You know, it's pretty mental.
No, I get what you're saying. It's really interesting to watch how all the sports have evolved. So I had seen some clips online of the events from 80 years ago, whatever number of years ago, compared to the events now. I mean, the same event, but how they compete and how fast they are. One of them was swimming. It's crazy. Like, the guy who's in first place now, he's done, and he would have time to eat a full meal almost before the 1920 folks are even close to being finished. And the same thing for gymnastics, which I know. So I know more about gymnastics than a normal person probably because I had a sibling who did gymnastics very competitively. But if you watch like the gold medalist from even 30 years ago or 40 years ago, their routines were super basic. You know, the vault where you run and you hit this, now it's a tongue-looking thing and you flip through the air. And you have Simone Biles doing like 3 pikes, which makes no sense. But if you go back in time to not that long ago, the only thing they did was go over the vault. They didn't do any twisty stuff. They just went over the vault. And that was it. I mean, you can't really compare now to then because things evolve, the training is different, the equipment's also different, like the floor mat and the floor event.
Probably not very safe back then, you know.
No, I mean now it's
a sheet of plywood. That's your gym floor.
Yeah,
Good luck if you break your
really.
head.
I mean, like now it's spring loaded. That's how they get that kind of height. But it's still, I don't know. It's pretty interesting, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it was pretty interesting. The swimming was interesting too. I mean, it's like the speed at which people swim, and they swim like fish.
Yeah.
Like their bodies do like, you know, sinuous waves, and I'm like, what the heck? Like, what is this?
Well, I probably talked about this before, but I had gone to the 2008 Olympics, and that was the first time that I had been to, first time I'd been to that far, for sure. First time I'd been on a big trip and all this kind of stuff. But certainly the first time being that close to the best in the world of whatever events we were watching. And it was eye-opening. Like, one of the things that you don't perceive when you're watching TV with track and field with the runners is how truly remarkably fast they are. It is really strange to see them in real life, because when you're sitting there and you're watching them go by, it really feels like you're watching a gazelle running. The fluidity, the form, the speed, of course, like all of it, it doesn't look like people. It's very, very strange.
You should watch me run and then watch them run. They should do an anti-Olympics with all the weirdos.
All the weirdos that you would be in there?
I don't know, maybe.
Yeah. It is, it is impressive. Yeah. And what's kind of strange, too, is that, you're the best in the world. You win gold. So you fly to this other country to be there for however many days. You compete, you win gold, and you go home, and depending on the country, you really don't get that much money. I think it's like Malaysia, maybe. One of those countries. Or Singapore, I forget. You get like a good amount of cash, but most places, it's not that much. I think in the United States, I could be completely wrong, but I thought it was like maybe 30 grand, 40 grand, something very small for winning gold. And I always thought when I was a kid, like, if you got a gold medal, that means there must be statues of you, like you must be set almost for life because you've achieved something. You're the best in the world at this thing. I
mean, you probably get a lot of opportunity afterwards, and you probably make decent amount of money from like advertising opportunity and all of that stuff, right? Because everybody wants you, like Nike wants you to show like their new collection of Nike because you're a runner and you're a gold medal and stuff like that. But it's probably not the amount that you would imagine they would be
it's
making.
Not. I remember looking at the chart and it's not. But even with that, you have to be, in order for that to work out, you have to win, and then you have to be good looking, well spoken, have a good story. Then you have to have the time and the interest to like go do all that stuff. And I think for a lot of athletes, even the ones who are like the best of the best and they do medal, like they have 1, 2.5, 3 jobs just to support a living so they can do what they want to do because they don't get paid to run around a track necessarily. I don't know. I find it very intriguing.
The thing that amazed me was the time of which they're competing. Like, they're only there doing their stuff for like a handful of minutes. And I'm like,
then it's over.
I'm like, what?
Yeah.
You've been practicing that much, that hard, probably destroying your body practicing, honestly, because that's not normal human use of your body, really, what you're doing. To make those like 4 minutes and win, and then that's it?
Yeah. That's being an athlete, I guess.
Yeah, not for me.
I mean, yeah, what we do is like completely the opposite of it, I suppose.
I mean, I guess if you're surfing, that could be hours.
Oh, we tried watching surfing. That was so boring.
Gosh. No, it was not.
I mean, I guess I don't know, even if you know surfing, it's still boring because they have to go out there. If it's live, you're just watching them wait for waves about 90% of the time.
Yeah.
Did you watch finally the breakdancer everyone's talking about?
I've seen like snippets of her,
the Australian,
I guess, called performance.
Yeah, she goes by Ray Gun. I forget her name. It's like Lizzie Raymond or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I was a little bit puzzled. I wasn't sure if she was a special person or
no.
What.
She's
but I did read afterwards that what she said that she chose to do that style of performance for the Olympics, and I'm like, well.
Did she say why?
It was like she wanted to do something new, try something new, try a different style. And I'm like, that's cool, but I don't know. Did you try it in front of anyone before? Like,
she's been getting a lot of hate to the point where I think someone on the Olympics committee or from the Australian, director panel, I don't know, whoever, reached out to make sure that she's doing okay. Because when almost the entire world is shitting on you, it's a problem. And then there was also concern that she made it to the Olympics by cheating, effectively. These are snippets online that were not based on our news article, I don't think, but like I think her husband or boyfriend was on the panel or something. But it was proven that no, she didn't cheat. She made it to the Olympics like perfectly fairly. The reason why other breakdancers who are by any metric better than her did not make it to the Olympics and she did was, I guess, the call that they announced for people to come try out was made, and then the time between that and then the tryouts was too short. So a lot of people didn't even know that there was an open call until it was already done.
So
then on top of that, too, you had to provide some paperwork to qualify. One of them was a passport, which obviously makes sense. But then there's two other things, too, which sort of made sense, but also made it very prohibitive for a lot of people. And the reality, too, is like, breakdancing comes from a certain part of society where a lot of folks in those conditions don't have a lot of money. You don't find like the top 1%, they don't breakdance. It came from the streets, essentially, right? It's a form of expression kind of from that. And which is an interesting thought because if that is its roots, which it is, and then the tryouts make it so that there's a good chance that people of that kind of population have a more are less likely to try out. That's a problem. So anyway, so she got in. Even with all that said, I find her so annoying because, first of all, her routine sucked. That's not a question. It's not a subjective, statement. It's a fact. It sucked. And everyone thinks it sucked. Everyone knows it sucked. And she seems to think that it was like, okay. And she seems to be quite proud of herself. And it's weird. It's like, I've seen other clips of her breakdancing, and she was better in those other routines. She still wasn't great, or probably not even good. But to me, it's like the total arrogance of living in your own literality and just telling yourself that it is this one way. And also, I to be honest, it annoys me even more because her, false sense of reality is a positive one. And I don't know why, but it bothers me even more.
Because you're a negative person, maybe?
Why are you happy? Like, that is such, I don't know. I find it...
She's happy. She's doing her little breakdancing 4 days a week.
Oh, my God.
She made it to the Olympics.
I find it disgusting. It was
weird. I did see, I think it was the beginning of her performance. And she, like, showed up on stage. She was kind of, like, moving and doing, like, weird faces, like, like tough guys do. Yeah. And I'm kind of like, okay, what is this?
But it's also...
like arrogant, extra confident, sure of herself. And I'm like, okay, anybody who starts like that, like, for me, it's automatically, like, -10. Like, now you got to start even, like, harder to make it back to 0. And then her routine followed. And I'm like, really? Like, what are you doing?
Some of that attitude, it kind of belongs with the breakdancing spirit. But I also find it weird when, again, that attitude, let's say, was naturally born through the breakdancing because it came from a certain place. Now you have a breakdancing sport, which is open to more people because it's become more popular. And so you are like a privileged white person who's like a PhD doctoral fellow teacher doing breakdancing. That's fine if you're going to do breakdancing, but I do find it a little bit weird that you're also going to adopt this kind of
the culture,
thug street culture
I
attitude. And then you hop around like an idiot. Like, it's weird.
I know. It felt like a bad caricature in some way.
If I was at university, I would seriously question whether or not I want this person teaching anybody anything. No, but really, if you lack that
I'm sure that's
self-awareness, then
mind.
I don't know if you should be around this university. Now, if it was my university, she wouldn't be there. I'll tell you that right now. So, yeah, there was that. Hard pivot. Going back to the idea of consumerism.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Very hard pivot, like a 580 pivot.
Yeah, I did have this thought the other, a few weeks ago. One of the reasons why...
What are you going to say?
One of the reasons why I have a really tough time getting along with a lot of the interior designers is that I think
I love how we're going from breakdancers to interior designers to whoever else we spoke about before. This episode is about David making enemies.
I've been consuming a lot of Dijon mustard, and I feel very spicy tonight. But legitimately, seriously though, it's not so much the interior designers, or it is them actually, but it's mostly kind of interior design as a whole in general. Is that a lot of it is very closely, for me, tied to consumerism.
Oh, of course, it's trends, a lot of it,
and
a lot of the bad interior design is
exactly
trends. Yeah.
So let's say if we compare it to architecture can also be a thing you consume, but it's so expensive. It's on a big scale that there's obviously a very serious functional component to it. So that kind of eliminates or kind of balances out the consumerist aspects of architecture, which again, the consumerist aspect of architecture is so small because it's just so expensive to build that no one does it just for trends unless you're like a billionaire or something. But if you look at architecture, you do a building, you can't really say that all of that is about consumerism because it provides shelter and because there's a lot of rational, functional thinking that goes into it. Yes, there's the whole question about like style and how it looks and the materials and stuff like that. And yes, importing marble from Italy to have as your kitchen countertop could be thought about as being a consumeristic feeling. But still, if you look at all of that and compare it to, quote, interior design, where we're just talking about tables, chairs, sofas, lamps, it's very product, right? And it might not be mass-produced products like buying an iPhone or buying clothing from a Gap store or buying Louis Vuitton, but it's right there, right? Even though there's not a chain of Louis Vuitton stores you're buying a bunch of crap from, it's kind of the same thing, right? Mm. Oh, Roche Bobois, which is like, it's okay. Or like, oh, whatever brand, this brand, oh, custom this and custom that. Oh, and I have a really hard time almost ethically being like associated with that. Like, I don't think it's cool. I don't think being effectively a personal shopper for somebody to spend a bunch of money just because it's cool and to make money, I don't think that's productive. And it's not tasteful a lot of times. And to be honest, the clients who get the stuff, they don't understand. They don't care about the stuff, really. They just want a pretty picture. And
well, I think the thing is that it's could be perceived as superfluous, and there's no social goodness made with that necessarily.
No, I don't think so. Of course, now if you're commissioning a local fabricator to make a table for you, then I'm all about that ecosystem. That makes a lot of sense. And the more of that we can do, the better. Assuming the table is not made out of, like, I don't know, dying leopard skin or something strange.
Well, but that's the thing. Like, people who can afford making those custom things, they are paying and using resources and things that, it's not. I mean, it's great for that local business to get to do like really cool pieces and actually get paid a lot of money, hopefully, for what they handcraft. But it's like, paying an artist to do a one-off piece.
Yeah, but I don't have any problem with that. I suppose it's about intention. Like, there are some clients that exist there that we've had who really, really care about, and they just love art. They love looking at it. They love learning about it. They love the work that goes into it. They just appreciate it, right? And that kind of love extends to other things that's not strictly just art, but to things that are functional, like tables and chairs and whatnot. And so then they commission someone to make something for them. And to me, that doesn't bother me, I guess, except for some people, I don't know, it feels very shallow.
If people find joy and appreciate and see the value in those things, then it's fine. If they don't care, it's just a social status thing that they're doing, and they're paying a personal shopper to do it for them, but they have no interest in it beyond that. It's not really anything.
I'm trying to think of the kind of counter argument. I mean, one could say, well, in terms of creating an environment, again, all the stuff in the environment matters just as much as anything else. So why would it be a bad thing to, have someone help you style a home? Why is that any different from hiring someone to build the house or, tell you where the walls should go and what they should be made out of and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, it is true too that a lot of people are not good. Like, let's say they do have a beautiful house that was done. If they don't know how to furnish it or like occupy it properly, they could just destroy what was done for them, or they
you having mic problems.
No, or they can completely miss the opportunity in living better in the setting that was designed for them.
Miss the opportunity because they fill it with crap?
Yeah, they fill it with crap. They don't know how to organize stuff. They don't know what sofa to buy, what color, where to put it,
That's true. That's true. But see, I think also what you're describing is having an impact on how one lives, almost like to live in a space that feels a certain way, and to live a more optimized life where you can enjoy it and whatnot. So it's, where my mind went was that, sometimes we visit, we visit houses a lot, but sometimes we visit houses and it's like a total mess. And my first thought is how are you possibly living like this? My second thought is, I seriously don't know if I can work with you, because if you live this way, I fundamentally I don't know if we actually are aligned enough in life. We might be two very different people. That sounds kind of maybe mean or petty or something, but we've been to some houses. I'm like, it's like a crack house in here, and you want me to design a really nice space for you? I don't see how that's. Unless you just went through rehab and now you're telling me you're reinventing yourself, then fine. But otherwise, I think you're just going to continue like this. I don't see how you're going to possibly appreciate anything I do for you, because you don't even appreciate your own health, apparently.
For sure. That's one risk. Also, I always say that, your house reflects who you are inside your head, right? So if you step into somebody's home and it's a shit show, it's probably a shit show in their head too, to be honest. I don't think I've ever... The only time where maybe a house I've stepped into was cluttered, one of the chances could be that the person is actually a genius and is just reflecting the complexity of their thoughts in a way that they just have a lot of thoughts, and they're very smart people. But most of the time it's just, they don't make much sense.
You were saying having the right color sofa or something like that, and this and whatever to make a space that feels good to be in. I'm not opposed to that. Obviously, because we do it, but it's just, I'm concerned that a lot of interior design now is just very wasteful, and it's just about collecting stuff. And then 5 years from now, when it's not trendy, throw it out and buy more stuff.
Of course, it's also because things are made to last,
Yeah,
and people are not buying things in thinking they're going to keep them forever.
That's true, I suppose. I'm honestly more interested in just creating architecture, and then the key furniture pieces is part of that in my view. But for all the small stuff, you go find it and get it yourself. You're supposed to occupy the space with your personality. You're supposed to live in the space. You're supposed to let you bleed into the space, and there's supposed to be a kind of dialogue or a merging between yourself and your environment. You're not supposed to live in there like a fucking doll. It's not a dollhouse, right? You don't come with the Barbie kit. You should buy your own stuff and occupy it like yourself. I guess the thing is, now that I say that, there's a lot of these people who just collect expensive things. They don't have a fucking personality, and they don't have any soul either. That's the problem.
Well, you're very pissy today. Huh?
It's just annoying.
What happened to you?
It's just annoying, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
But
happy after our recording, everybody. If you're still listening to this recording, well, thanks for hanging on in there.
But how many people, though, do you know how many people are there who have a lot of money, and that's what they do, though, right? They just collect stuff. And I'm like, stop collecting stuff. You don't need more stuff. You don't need the latest handbag. You don't need the latest this, the latest lamp. It's not necessary. Go find something else to do with your life other than just consuming things, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's. Look, architects have to have clients, and architects have to have good clients, and clients have money to do cool things. But ideally, I would like to work with people where, for them, it is about the architecture and the main pieces, but the rest are like, I'm going to live in it. I'm going to find my artwork that I have is going to go here. It's going to become my place.
It takes efforts and it takes interest in doing that. And a lot of people have either no interest in doing that or they have no time to spend doing that. So that's why they pay someone else to do it for them.
Okay, I get it. The time constraint thing. And I'm not hating on everyone who hires folks for decor and furnishing services. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that a lot of times, especially with the, top tier designer folks, it's just consumerism. And they're more like personal shoppers, and it's very shallow without any kind of depth or soul. And I really don't like that these people are so closely associated with architects, or that these people are thought about as being more gifted than architects. I'm like, no, you're not. You're fucking bloodsuckers is what you are. That's all you do is just take a bunch of money, buy expensive stuff, and throw it in a house. You're not doing anything for society or for the people. Like, you're doing nothing.
Yeah.
You're doing nothing. Stop. You don't deserve a TV show. You don't deserve to be praised. You don't deserve to have that attitude. And what education or training do you have? You don't. None of that. You got lucky, right? You came from wealth, and you're in the fancy hills. That's how you got to where you are. But it's nothing. It's all fake.
Yeah, I agree. But I just don't think about these people, and my life is better. That's
probably true. We've been actually approached a number of times to interview these types of people.
Yeah, no, not going to happen.
Someone reached out. It was a PR person, either a PR company or their, personal advertising individual marketing person, and said, we have this great guest for you. They're perfect for your show. And I'm like, okay, interesting.
Yeah, it's the same email that sent like 50 times to 50 different podcasts, though.
Well, yeah, of course. They were like, oh, I forget their name, which is probably a good thing. So-and-so guy, he is a top interior designer. I'm like, okay, top interior designer.
Top, yeah.
Let's see. Oh, he has X hundreds of thousands or millions of TikTok views. Okay. That is it's a minor, preemptive red flag. It's not a red flag. It's not bad to have a bunch of views on TikTok or whatever platform, right? But the fact that they're leading with this does not make me feel very confident. And then it goes to describe the TikToks, real TikToks? I don't know what they're called. The videos that they've created on TikTok. One of them was how to make your house look more expensive cheaply. And another was
I said that
the biggest trends that to do with white or something. And unfortunately, we get so many of these emails. I can't reply to most of them. And sometimes too, when people email, I don't reply because I haven't made a decision yet, which is also not a great thing. I probably should just reply. In this case, I replied and I said, "I'm sorry, this is not a good fit for our show. Thank you." Very cordial, but. Man, were they incorrect about them being a good fit for our show.
Well, that's the problem I have with PR and marketing companies in general. It's like, okay, if I'm, let's say, that client, that top interior designer on TikTok, and I'm hiring, a marketing or a PR company to get me publicity and marketing opportunities, right? I'm expecting them to take their job seriously, do their research, only contact people that make sense to make sure they get me on those things rather than email blast, all of the podcasts that exist out there that aren't even the right fit with a generic email that probably ChatGPT typed for them, and they know nothing about the show and they're proposing nothing, because it's like, well, I think I could pay an assistant somewhere on the other side of the world for much cheaper to do the exact same job than hiring someone in this country to do it for me. And this is a waste of money. I think a lot of PR and marketing companies to me are big fraud. There are people who actually do not care about what they do not do a good job, take people's money and just have the same exact strategy for every single client. And don't actually put the work, time, or effort in doing what they're meant to be doing.
Yeah.
I would tend to think maybe because of watching shows like Mad Men and whatever, that those types of agency and in the publication and the media decades ago actually cared about what media was. I feel like,
but
I feel like today everything is so, society is great. Everything's open. Knowledge is accessible. People can reach out to anybody, and everybody can do anything because now we can all learn and like be homeschooled and learn from the internet on how to become an expert in anything. That's great. Kind of like the democratization of knowledge through the internet. Like, great. But I feel like that also opened the door to just like more imposters out there.
Sure, yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean there are good companies, but they're expensive. But it's also
but I don't believe that I believe that you can be a small company, be affordable, and still be doing a great job.
The affordable thing is tough. I don't know.
I mean, we're talking about like really expensive, like marketing PR companies that only work with like the top clients and all of that. Fine. But there should be another range for everyone else available.
But there's not. There are a few ones, yes, of course. But in general, there's not. This is the problem that we have now, probably in most of the Western countries, but for sure the United States. The whole middle is gone, right? Then it's not just, and just when we talk about the class, middle class, lower class, upper class, the middle's fucking gone. But the same thing applies to everywhere else, right? Like, the average job, you have to make so much money now to be able to have security that used to be offered from 50 years ago. And it's just tough, right? And that's also the problem even within our industry, like architecture and interior design. It's expensive to hire an architect. And yet architects don't make that much money. How does that work? It's all like really twisted and backward. And I choose not to think about it. I choose just to focus on trying to do my thing and doing this show, and that's about all I can handle these days. But that's really the problem. And we come across a lot of potential clients too who nice people would love to work with them, but it's just too expensive.
I was thinking about that the other day. Actually, we were driving somewhere and it was like just a bunch of new luxury rental apartment buildings on that same street, like new building, luxury amenities, and probably like $8,000 a month or whatever to live in those places, right? We were driving and I was thinking, I'm like, well, I don't know, am I gonna end up in a few years being in like the lower class, social class, if I don't make $1 million a year as income? Like, that's
like, kind of where we're headed.
I mean, I'm kind of like, back then, like there was like a big threshold, but like, I'm like, if I can afford like renting a place in those places, then what are my options, And if I can make it into, what do I need to do to be able to make it into those places? And if this becomes the norm in every city, right? Like where every single new apartment building is that, at some point it's going to be like all of them, you can afford those, then that's it. That means you're at the bottom. It's
really tough. And I'm not saying that I'm also not claiming to be part of the lower class, because there are certainly people who obviously have a lot less money and are struggling way more than we are. And I'm not trying to say that our struggles or the struggles of people around us are like that. That's certainly not the case, but it is. I don't know. It's a weird one. I don't know how it's going to self-correct or something. Either it's going to continue this way and it's going to keep getting worse and worse, or something's going to happen that's probably more on the lines of a very serious revolution. I don't think it's around the corner.
My backup plan is just move back to France.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Look, it's not my number one choice, but if it comes to that, I think life could still be pretty sustainable over there.
I mean, I don't speak French, so I don't know how that's going to work, but I mean...
Well, you learn. Have you heard of Duolingo?
No, Duolingo. And now let's give a shout out to our sponsors who support our show.
In our office, we do a lot of remodel projects, and getting accurate as-builts of homes was always a challenge. As you can imagine, manually surveying a home is tedious and time-consuming. Fortunately, we discovered Canvas, an app that allows us to use our iPad or iPhone to scan entire homes quickly using LiDAR technology. Canvas processes the scan and produces 2D drawings or 3D computer models of the home. The file format are SketchUp, ArchiCAD, Vectorworks, Revit, and others. So click the link in our show notes or visit canvas.io/SSP to get your first as-built free. We are supported by Enscape, which is a fast and easy to use real-time visualization and VR tool for the AEC industry. Enscape is not a standalone application. Instead, it's a plugin which makes things much easier. It plugs into Revit, SketchUp, Rhino, ArchiCAD, and Vectorworks. And with Enscape, you can create realistic renderings, 360-degree panoramas, and videos. You can also immerse clients into VR to give them a deeper understanding of their building. Enscape is used by more than 500,000 monthly users worldwide from over 150 countries. So if you want a fast and user-friendly real-time visualization experience, click on the Enscape 3D link in our show notes.
Here's the other thing too, going back to the architecture thing. So, when clients call me and I'm talking to them on the phone, potential clients, cold calls, and we're talking about construction costs, as one does. I know it's hard for professionals to talk about construction costs because I don't know what it is, but I'm like, hey,
you should have an idea.
You should have some kind of idea. You got to get a range, and also if you look at the property value, you have an idea of how much they're going to spend, probably, right? If the property value in California, one of the major cities, is worth $1.2 million, it's very unlikely that they're going to be spending $1,000 a square foot. So yes, you can give them a range for what would make sense and what they can expect. So sometimes we get all kinds of calls from all kinds of people. So sometimes the price range that is more feasible for them is like the $500 per square foot price range, which for those who don't know, in California at least, that's like super basic construction, kind of like just normal house.
If you hire an architect.
Just normal house. And still for a lot of people, right, $500, imagine $500 in your pocket goes to 1 square foot of this house you're going to build. It's
crazy though. Like if you were like lining up bills, like dollar bills on the floor per square foot, like you lay that on the ground of every single room, like that would be mental. It's
a lot of money. And then they ask, well, how much is your fee? And I explain it. And then one of the things I usually tell folks, depending on the client, is I kind of talk to them about the architecture, construction, and design and fees and processes in a general perspective. And I always tell them, like, hey, look, I will help you as much as I can. If we get to work with each other and we're a good fit, great. If we're not, don't worry about it. Still call me if you have questions, because I love helping people. So I'll tell them sometimes, like generally, well, an architect, if you're depending on their scope of work, are they doing the interiors or not, and whatever, they're doing CDs and CA, 10 to 15%, depending. They say, okay, well, if I imagine it's like 12% just for the sake of conversation, so you'd be like 12% of $500 per square foot. And if you were to talk to any office that is high-end residential, their fee is not 10 to 12% of $500 per square foot. Their fee is like 10 to 12% of like $1,000 per square foot, right? Because that's the kind of projects they work on. So sometimes also there's this issue where not only is the construction cost too high, but the architect's fee as a proportion of the construction costs at that level would have to be like 18 to 20%, even for it to make sense for the architect to do it. And then that's bananas to the client, right?
Yeah.
And as much as I wish construction wasn't so expensive, if construction somehow dropped by half overnight, right? So that means you could build like a really nice high-end house for $500 a square foot. My fee cannot be 10% of that. It's not enough. It's not even close to being enough, right? And that goes back to this problem of where it's way too expensive for the clients, and for me to do a fee that they need, it's not enough for me for the amount of education we have and what we have in terms of the office. It's not enough. It doesn't make sense, right? If I was flipping burgers, then yeah, that would be appropriate. But for what all the work it takes and what we're supposed to be doing, it can't. And I don't have a solution to that, I guess. I've always imagined that if I won the lottery, I'd just do a bunch of services for free. I'd be like, it's free. It's free. I'll help you fund your project for you.
Yeah, but then you do a disservice to the ones who did not win the lottery, who are in your industry. So please don't do that.
Well, no, I'm one person.
Yeah, I don't think this guy's doing work for free. Yeah, let's do that too. No, you can't do that. Have some respect for your industry.
No, but I'm one person, and it would be
but that's what everybody's thinking. Oh, it's just me. It's just me. I'm not saying everybody should be doing that.
No,
No,
but
no, no. Don't work for free. Don't work for free. Get paid in burgers, but don't work for free.
The problem is the people who do it for really cheap and they do really a bad job. Those are the people that's a problem. I mean, I'm basically
imposters. Imposters are the problem.
Yeah.
You know, people are like, oh, I can do it. I can design. Oh, you don't need an architect. I could just do it for you. Yeah, right. Yeah, let's see how that works out. And then you're going to call me.
Well, that's another interesting thing, right? Is we as a profession really struggle to explain what we do to people.
But it's complicated. I mean, it's not like 1 + 1 = 2.
It is complicated, but we have to learn how to uncomplicate it and say it in a way that people get it. That's part of the challenge. And that's also why I've opted to do a long format podcast for 7 years, so I don't have to do that.
Brainwash people with your episodes.
Yeah. But I think we do need to get better at it. And in that question, you might imagine that there's an architect and that they're speaking with someone who doesn't know anything about architecture. And let's say they're a client and they're like, I want to hire an architect. I don't know anything about architecture. You know, help me through this.
I love that these after hours are never about after hours.
I mean, we did talk about the breakdancing person. So that counts. But this is interesting to me because it also ties into the education of architecture and how one learns architecture. One could think that just by, like you said, absorbing information from online and going out and looking at architecture and touring the world and looking at architecture, that you learn enough about architecture to then design architecture, right? Do you think that's true?
Look, if I'm trying to learn how to make homemade pasta, I'm going to watch a YouTube video. I'm going to have learned. I'm not going to claim around the block that I'm the queen of homemade pasta and I can do it and do it for a living and do it every day and I've mastered it all, right? Like, no, I don't think it's true. I don't think you can just like obtain the expertise of something by just consuming it for an hour and a half on YouTube or browsing.
No, but it's not just an hour and a half. Like, let's say you're watching a lot of things, right?
You can watch as much as you want. How much have you done beyond watching?
Well, but that's okay. Well, let's say I watch a bunch of stuff, and my hobby is architecture. I go and visit all the famous houses. Okay. All the famous buildings. I see all the non-famous ones, all the bad ones, the good ones, everything. I sketch them, I draw them, I photograph them, I study plans online, I draw my own plans. I'm absorbed into it, yeah?
Right.
I'm dedicated. I'm not fucking around.
Okay. Have you built anything?
Why? And I've won the lottery, so I've now built 10 houses, okay?
Okay.
Why am I not an expert? Why would I not be an expert?
Are you working in your own bubble? I mean, are you aware of what's going on around you? Do you have other people?
I don't need anyone else because
input? I don't. Do you try to improve yourself every time? Are you trying to keep learning, or are you set in the ways you do things?
I'm always learning. I'm always online looking at the latest things, the latest videos about architecture and construction and the trends of what's popular. I'm always going out and looking at more buildings. I'm trying to improve all the time. But to your question about do I work with other people? No, I don't need to because I've learned it all.
You're so good, you don't need anyone else, right?
Well, I'm learning. I'm sucking up information from everywhere else, and I'm self-funded because I'm a lottery winner. So
you can put things
together. You're telling me, architect, I'm not an expert.
So you can put things together, but how have you practiced your design thinking, your conceptual thinking?
Conceptual thinking? What's that?
Like, oh yeah, I could put this tile with this stone and it was going to look beautiful. And I had a door here, a window there. Oh my God, a nice moment. Great. And I can do that 15 times and I've built it and I've drawn it and I've modeled it. Great. Can you think beyond doors and windows? Or is this kind of like the limit of your vocabulary?
This would be the moment in the conversation where the other person would be looking at you with a blank stare and not understanding what you're saying, which is my point. This is the strange thing, right, with architecture because of its, complexity and nuance, as you said earlier. You can learn a lot about architecture. Yeah. Especially now with the internet. You can. You can learn a lot about construction. You can learn a lot about palettes and just generally things that look cool. And you can take that information and you can assemble something that looks decent. Is it architecture, though? No, not necessarily. So the fundamental difference that I don't think that the average person gets is it's the conceptual aspect of architecture, which I don't know from the layperson's ears if it sounds like we're just being pretentious assholes when we say that.
Probably, honestly.
Look, are there exceptions? Of course. People always point to like Tadao Ando, oh, he's never trained and he's blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, but he's like 1 in like 10 million. Don't
but
use that example.
But he's Japanese, okay? He has concepts to start with. Gosh.
They have a cool factor to start with.
Have you heard of wabi-sabi? You know the word that every single white person in LA throws around whenever they talk about design? That also pisses me off. It's like the overuse of terms that people, they don't even know what it, first of all, they don't even know what it means. They're probably not even saying it right. And they use it as throwaway in conversation to sound smart. And I'm like, but actually that it's absolutely not the meaning. It's nothing to do with what we're talking about right now. I know you do not look intelligent. But
even with what you said just then is related, right? Because it's people taking things they've seen somewhere else and just regurgitating it in a very superficial way, or even they're the rare people where they've looked up the term wabi-sabi and they've researched like the history and what it means and what it has been, and they talk about that. My point is, I guess, in fewer words, is that acquiring a bunch of data does not yield architecture. Yeah. It does not work that way. And that's why architecture school is so difficult. It's difficult because of the work, but honestly, as long as you're tough and you're resilient and you maintain a somewhat okay sleeping schedule, you'll get through it. The difficult part about architecture school and learning architecture is the conceptual stuff. It's the most elusive, slippery, weird part about it, and it's the most important part about it. And that is the thing that separates architecture from buildings. Even when buildings look good, looking good is from the perspective of where we exist now, right? In this year 2024, this rough decade, this rough 50 years with the technology we have. Looking good is irrelevant, right? It's the core conceptual meaning behind what you're doing and the intent and the statement and your attempt at doing that. That's what matters. And so I honestly don't care what the building looks like.
Well, that goes back to consumerism, the way the building looks like.
It can be, yeah. Yeah.
You know, like, are you trying to make a mark in the human species era on this planet, or you're just trying to mark for yourself this specific moment for the next 10 years?
Yeah.
And what kind of mark? Is it just a mark that looks cool, or is it a mark that actually like has meaning and has been like questions and reflect a very specific way to consider living on this planet in this specific location, like thinking about what a building should be, could be, would be, you know, like, I don't know, just bigger questions than just yourself.
Bigger questions, and that's the funny thing too. I think sometimes the complexity of architecture does itself a disservice in the sense that if you imagine a structure, a building that looks amazing, it's well proportioned, it's very functional. It was built in a detailed way, very, very well built, and it increases the property value, and blah 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 blah. You would think that that's enough, right? You would think that that's enough for it to be architecture, and what has been built was done by a really good architect, but it's not enough, and that's the crazy thing. That's also why it's so hard to do what we do. And every architect attempts to do more than what I've just outlined. It's not always possible, but the attempt is there. And maybe more importantly, the wherewithal that there is these other things that you mentioned that we're trying to do, even if we didn't get there, is what matters to me. And it can't be confused with,
But that's the thing that's kind of like... It should almost be somewhat a prerequisite for anyone who's going to spend a considerable amount of time and money into doing an architectural project to provoke and answer or try to answer some of those bigger questions. Because not everybody has the opportunity to do architectural projects, hire architect experts and like do those types of build. that the people who can should not be allowed just to like do whatever the fuck they want. Like they should be answering like some of those bigger questions, or they should be trying to push the answer to all those bigger questions.
Yeah, I know. I'll give another aspect of architecture that I think delineates it from everything else. That's less conceptual and less big questioning, because the whole thing of like you mentioned, what does this do for society and how should we live? How should we be living this way and stuff like those are big things. Another one that's more tangible is the idea of the partie. Any architect listening knows what a partie is. For non-architects, they're like, party? What's a partie? The partie of a project is usually it's a diagram, so it's a partie diagram. It is a graphic representation of the essence, the formal essence of the project. So not the conceptual, not the like kind of like societal questioning things, whatever, like the formal essence of it. So, for example, if you took a building and you looked at the floor plan, the essence might be distilled to 2 lines, or it might be 2 lines that make a cross, or it could be a big square and a circle, or it could be a framework with the things going through the framework. Like this is kind of like the partie of the project. And I think that is called simpler aspect of architecture that is also missing from those who are not trained in architecture, because they just don't see it, right? I would say also the biggest difference between, the partie and then this other stuff out there, and the difference between, let's say, architect and the non-architect, is that folks who were not really trained in architecture, they tend to think very locally, meaning that they will look at one room and be concerned with that room, and then be concerned with the next room, but not think about how the two relate. Or they're concerned about this one window and this one moment, this one detail, but not think about how this thing, albeit being very cool, how that is an expression of the rest of the project. And that probably is where a lot of things fall apart. I mean, buildings don't really work in terms of design, is because they're just a collection of like good moments.
But the problem I think is that architects need clients. I think that's the ultimate problem.
All right.
No, because the thing is, it basically means that in order for us to do our job well and interest and for it to be interesting, we basically have to find the people who understand what we're doing. First of all, who are interested in understanding what we're doing and willing to go that route. And it's very difficult to find because most people cannot think conceptually, cannot see the value of most things beyond their nose. So really the issue is that architects rely on clients to make architecture happen. And that's just the thing that...
Well, I mean, I think working with a client can be such a productive relationship too. I mean, I don't know how many projects we've had where...
Yeah, if the clients are interested and willing to go that route.
It's true.
But if you take a sample of, 100 architects out there who are working on 100 different projects, how many of these 100 clients are the ones that, would get the project going in the actual right direction? 10? I don't know.
Yeah, probably around there.
So it's just...
Literally, probably around there. Yeah.
So architects have to... we've got to build our own buildings. That's just what it comes down to. Come on, guys.
I mean, that's part of it, but I think we just need to be better at speaking.
Well, that too. If you can't build your own buildings, then you got to really tough it up and explain to people what we do and make them understand that.
It is a hard thing because it's we create, and we as humans, we think through our eyes so much, right? And it's like we see it. That's how we judge it and decide whether or not we like it or don't like it, how we feel about it. There's truth to that. You can't ignore that, obviously. But I did mean what I said before. Like, I don't really care what the building looks like. If the ideas are sound, then I don't care.
Because you're not the one paying for it. I mean,
no, but it doesn't matter. Like white, black, brown. Thick, thin, round, square, flat. I don't care.
Well, I think also there is something that's... I think there is also something that kind of happens when you are in an industry is that you kind of...
What?
I don't know. I feel that... I don't know if it's the floor moving or whatever.
We did experience a few...
Spaghettis, we call them around here. That's the code word for the E word.
Yeah.
I do feel like when you're working in a specific industry, you probably have a tendency to start being appreciative of the things that are available in your industry. For example, I do have some personal favorite colors, right?
Sure.
But I'm open to every color when I design.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's just me. Maybe there are some architects who are just like, I only use 3 and I would never consider any of the other ones, right?
Yeah.
But I have appreciation in exploring things and being open to all of the things that are available to me when I'm creating, right? And I would imagine that a chef probably does the same thing. Like, unless they really want to focus on their menu on potatoes, they might be open to vegetables and meat and, other things.
That's your kind of
right?
restaurant right there. I know potatoes done in 50 different ways.
Hey, I'm sure there is restaurants who just do that.
That's a great idea. Honestly, I would go.
Yeah, don't go if you're a little bit constipated.
Yeah,
It might not go very well for you. But so therefore, if I was my own client doing a building, for example, I probably wouldn't care too much about like what color is the building. My taste is I like purple. Well, if the building is not purple, I'm not gonna like it, or it has to have purple. Like there is kind of like those sometimes personal agenda on things that kind of dictates what the decision should be, and sometimes it's valid. I mean, if it's something you're going to stare at every day because that's the room you're working in and you need to feel like it's making sense for where you're trying to have your head in. But also, I don't know, maybe there is other things that could work.
It's a good point. I feel, yeah.
It's interesting because when you work with, let's say, private clients doing their homes, right?
Yeah.
They have personal preferences. And most likely, because they're hiring you, they're doing something custom, they're paying for your services, they want something that they're going to like. And therefore, they rely on the thing that they usually like in life to be the same ones in architecture to be able to like the architecture. Mm-hmm. Oh, I don't like metal, like silver metal. Oh no, I cannot do silver metal. Why? Why? Because I would never buy silver jewelry. Therefore, I don't like silver metal. Okay, well, those are different things. Like, you don't like silver jewelry. I don't either. Would I never have silver metal on a house? Probably would, It's kind of like being able to do those distinctions. And it's tough because all of these people never had to pose those questions to a building.
That's another good point, too. I think that, there's a lot of similarities between a building in its aesthetics when you think about it compared to other stuff, too. Like, if someone leads a life and their whole wardrobe is beige and white, well, you can probably imagine what their house is going to be like, perhaps. But I actually think in general, aside from that individual I just described, sounds like a maniac, like your house or your building is not the rest of your life. Like it's different, and it can afford to have different things. I mean, I think also people are like they're making a decision before they've even seen the thing. So I think, did we do a recording about how to be a good client? I don't remember, but one of the things clients have to be is open-minded.
Yeah. Because
like this is a building. It's not a car. It's not your watch. It's not your whatever. It does say something about you, yes, but it's a building. It's a house. It's different.
Well, it's like you don't like silver, so you would have never bought the iPhone that had the silver button?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. You would still have got that phone.
I'm only interested in just coming up with a good idea, hard to do, hopefully a good idea. It doesn't have to be original either, but an idea that feels honest and just expressing that idea. That's all I want to do. That's all the building should be also. Just an expression of that idea. Now, to go from an idea that can be conveyed in a couple sentences in a diagram to a full building where you have to pick out like door handles and wood species and grain cuts and everything else, that's hard. But I just want that thing to be expressed. That's it. That's also when I said I don't care what it looks like, I'm referring to other buildings. Like I have appreciation for all buildings, even Tudor-style ones. But also, I mean, for my own architecture, like I don't really care what it looks like in the spectrum of modern and contemporary work. I don't believe in repeating old things. But that's what I'm saying. If it ends up being round, then it's round because it was a baby. It evolved into a round thing. That's what it's supposed to be, right? It grew up into that, evolved into that in the process. It's square because it's supposed to be square. That's what it's calling for. That's all I care about. And I think that people in general, but let's say clients who are more in tune with that, there's two things. I think it's a person who is probably operates at a higher level of thinking. Sounds very arrogant, but I think it's true. Like we've had some clients who are just like stupidly smart, and they get it faster than others. I think it's also people who are very confident in themselves. I don't mean confident in terms of being arrogant, but there's a calmness about them. And this is I'm not just talking about people, not even architecture. You've met people where you like, they know themselves. Maybe they're loud, maybe they're quiet, maybe they're soft-spoken, maybe they're whatever, but you know that they just get themselves, and they're not out to prove anything. And I think when you have that level of confidence, you're a bit more distant from things around you, in that you just appreciate for what they are, and you don't feel like it has to be this way because only I like this thing and I don't like that thing, so it can't be that, because if it's not that way, then it's like it's an attack of me, and I don't know. They don't feel that way. They don't talk that way. There's nothing about them that's that way, right? And it's not to say that they're hands off. Of course, we're like, blue's not my color. Okay, fine. Then we can work with that. But in general, there's like a calmness about them. And they also have an appreciation for things that are pure expression. People who tend to understand art get it too, right? And then, of course, people who can afford to have a bunch of houses, because this is one of many. They don't care. It sounds like an absolutely crazy thing to ask a client to like not care about how it looks like and just follow the idea, but that's really what it's about. And in a certain sense, for some architects, it's kind of like more like you're hiring an artist than you are in that regard. You're fading, I can tell.
Yeah, I'm very uncomfortable.
Your mic keeps sagging also.
No, it's just that it's like, I can't sit forward. I need to sit back.
Oh, then pull the... Well, we're pretty much done anyway.
Yeah, I want to wrap it up. I'm not comfortable.
But should we go get in and out? Is that what you want? Oops. Sagging mic.
Go get in and out?
Yeah.
I want to go get that restaurant. Go to that restaurant that only specializes in potatoes.
It doesn't exist yet. I have to make it.
I'm going to make it. Watch me.
Well, if you made it to the end of the recording, then good for you. Then you're part of the
select few.
The evil club. Yeah, just sometimes you just gotta let it out. I don't have a punching bag, so the mic becomes my punching bag. But I suspect a lot of people would probably agree with everything I said. They just don't want to say it because you can't live in darkness all the time. Just for an hour once a week.
Just gotta let it go. So grab a microphone and just record yourself.
But it is a legitimate question, right? Like, how can an average person learn architecture
you can't.
Properly?
You can't.
You can't. No.
It's too bad. You miss your chance.
Oh.
Just hire a professional.
Yeah. Okay, well then give us an outro, so then we can go to get in and out.
That was terrible advertisement.
Have you heard the In and Out song?
Is there an In and Out song?
Yeah. How does it go? It's like in and out, that's what it's all about. That's something like that, yeah.
Oh, it sounds like the type of thing that gets stuck in your head all day, right?
It's not as bad as It's a Small World After All.
I don't think I know the song.
Oh.
Don't even try. Okay. I think we lost everybody on this recording now. Thanks for singing. Thanks for listening to this random and thanks for listening to this random and rather venting episode. If you do still like the show and still want to support us, please follow us on the podcast platforms. We're on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, and many others. You can also leave us a review. Please don't rate this episode specifically because I don't think that would really help us. But we have a lot of good stuff, on the website, secondstudiopod.com. You can also follow us on Instagram. Second Studio Pod is our profile.
Mm-hmm.
I have a very disturbed child here playing around with pens and whatever. Those are kind of like the most random conversations, but we do have more disciplined topics and formal interviews of guests. So feel free to check those out. And that's it. I will have the hotline, 213-222-6950, if you need to vent as well. If you need to like David, have a therapy session, feel free to send us your feelings by text or leave us a voicemail, and we'll try and get back to you.
Yeah. Tell us your feelings, and if they're dark ones, and I'll pivot it on the podcast and make it a positive one.
All right.
Right. And we'll be adding soon a disclaimer to our show notes, which says that the thoughts and opinions expressed in the show are not necessarily those of the host or the sponsors. And that'll be in the notes. We don't have to say it on the show. But I didn't want to say it also because the thoughts of our guests are not always the ones that we agree with either, if you know what I'm saying.
Okay, I think it's happy hour or something. I'm going to go feed the devil. Okay, talk soon. Bye-bye.